Daf Yomi Tractate Menachot, page 84b. It's interesting that 84 has a numerical value of Sunday in English gematria. Sunday has a numerical value of 84, I should say. And the daf for today, which is Sunday, is Menachot 84. And take it how you will. Take it with a grain of salt. Maybe it's meant to be, maybe it's not meant to be. But the point is that this happens not so infrequently. It happens on somewhat of a regular basis. So, meaning, if you add the letter S plus U plus N plus D plus A plus Y, like S is 19 because it's the 19th letter and so forth. U is 21. If you add those letters, it equals 84. And today is Sunday. So this is an area of study that I'm involved in, not just Hebrew gematria, but English gematria as well. It has some fantastic findings, fantastic things hidden in it. Secrets, codes, things like that. So 84b, but we left off with a new idea, which is the last line of 84a. So that's where we'll start from 84a. Tanan Hasam Ein Mevin Bikurim Chutz B'Shivas Haminin V'lo Mitamar. Now it's 84b. Mitamarim Shebeharim V'lo Miperos Shebe'amakim Amar Ula Im Hevish Lo Chadash. Okay, we learned in a Mishnah. This is back to 84a. We learned in a Mishnah elsewhere, Bikurim 1:3. One may bring first fruits only from the 7 species with which Eretz Israel is praised in the verse, the land of wheat and barley, vines, figs, and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey. Honey meaning dates. Date honey. Okay, so it's wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. Deuteronomy 8:8. But one may not, now it's 84b, bring them from the dates that grow in the mountains. And one may not bring them from produce that grows in the valleys. Such produce is of inferior quality and may not be used. Ula says, even if one did bring such produce, he does not thereby consecrate it, meaning it does not attain the consecrated status of first fruits. Okay. Yosef Rabbi Ka'amar Lahashmaite Eisvei Rabbi Yachav Rabbi Korban Reishis Shetehei Reishis Techol Menochos V'cheinu Oimer B'Chrivchem Mincha Chadosh L'Shem Mishvoi Seichei. Rabbi sat in the study hall and stated this halachah. Rabbi Acha Bar Abba raised an objection to Rabbah from a Braita. The Torah refers to the 2 loaves offering as a first offering to the Lord, Leviticus 2:11, which indicates that it is to be the first of all the meal offerings that come from the new crop. And similarly, the verse states with regard to the festival of Shavuot, on the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new meal offering to the Lord, Numbers 20:26, by designating the 2 loaves as new. The verse indicates that they should be brought as the first of the new crop. Ein li ela chadasha shel chitim, chadasha shel seoirim, minayin tamad lomar chadasha. Chadasha imenu inyan lechadasha shel chitim, teneyu inyan lechadasha shel seoirim. I have derived only that it must be new, meaning the first of all wheat meal offerings. From where do I derive that it must also be new? Meaning, the first of all barley meal offerings, for example, the meal offering of a sotah. With regard to the 2 loaves, the verse states the word new, and again states the word new once in Numbers 28:26, and again in Leviticus 23:16. If the second mention is not needed to teach the matter of being the new meal offering of wheat, applied to the matter of being the new meal offering of barley. Uminayin shetei kodemes bikurim tamaloma chag shavuos ta'aseh lecho bikurei ketzir chitim ve'ein li ela bikurei ketzir chitim ketzir so'er minayin tamaloma v'chag ha'kotzir bikurei ma'asecho asher tizra basarei. The Braita continues, and from where is it derived that the 2 loaves precede the beginning of the first fruits as well? The verse states, and you shall make for yourself a festival of Shavuot, the first fruits of the wheat harvest. Exodus 34:22. The order of the verse teaches that the offering of the festival, which is the 2 loaves offering, precedes the beginning of the first fruits of the wheat harvest. I have derived only that the 2 loaves precede the first fruits of the wheat harvest. From where do I derive that they also precede the bringing of the first fruits of the barley harvest? The verse states, with regard to the festival of Shavuot and the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you will sow in the field. Exodus 23:16. In the order of the verse teaches that the offering of the festival, which is the 2 loaves offering, precedes all forms of first fruits that are sown in the field, which includes barley. From this verse I have derived only that the 2 loaves precede the bringing of the first fruits that sprouted from seeds you sowed, as the verse states, which you will sow. From where do I derive that they precede even the bringing of first fruits that sprouted by themselves? The continuation of that verse states, in the field. At Exodus 23:16, the term is superfluous and answers to include even produce that sprouted by itself. Shebegag, V'shebechurba, V'shebeotziz, V'shebesvino, Tavanleimar, B'kurei Kol, Sheberetzam. The Braita continues from this verse, I've derived only that the 2 loaves precede the bringing of produce that grew in a field. From where do I derive to include even produce that grew on a roof, or that grew in a ruin, or that grew in a flower pot, or that grew on a ship? The verse states, with regard to the priestly gifts, the first fruit of all that grows in their land, which they shall bring to the Lord, shall be yours. Numbers 18:13. The term first fruits in this verse is referring to all types of first fruits. This teaches that when the 2 loaves are referred to as the first fruits, see Exodus 34:22, the intention is that they should be brought first before all other types of produce. ונסחים ופרס האילון, פרס האילון, ונאמר כאן ביקורי מעשיך, ונאמר לעולם ואספך את מעשיך מן השדה. מה להלן נסחים פרס אילון, אף כאן נסחים פרס אילון. The Braita continues, from where is it derived that the offering of the 2 loaves is to precede both the bringing of libations from grapes of the new crop and the bringing of the first fruits of the tree. It is stated here with regard to the 2 loaves, the first fruits of your labors, Exodus 23:16, and it is stated there at the end of that verse, when you gather in the products of your labors from the field, just as there the term your labors is referring to both 2 fruits used for the libations and the fruit of the tree. So to here the term is referring to both fruits used for the libations and the fruit of the tree. Katani miha shebegag shebechoba shebeotziz shebesvida seifa asyan minachois. Rav Acham bar Abba explains how the Braita poses a challenge to Ula's ruling. In any event, it was taught in this Braita that bringing the 2 loaves must precede even the bringing of produce that grew on a roof, that grew in a ruin, that grew in a flower pot, or that grew on a ship. Okay. This indicates that all these types of produce are valid to be brought as first fruits, despite the fact that they are of inferior quality. This would appear to contradict Ula's ruling that dates grow in the mountains and produce grown in the valleys are not fit to be brought as first fruits. Rav explains, Whereas in the first clause, the Mishnah discusses which types of produce can be used for the first fruits. In the latter clause, we come to discuss which grains can be used for meal offerings. Produce that grew in these atypical locations is valid to be brought as meal offerings, but not first fruit. Maskifla, Rav Adavar Hava, Ihachi, Hainu Sikol Tovis, Yehoshua, Menachot, Nizikuno, Demas Chalan. The latter clause of the Braita explain the verse. The verse of all that grows in the land, in their land, Numbers 18:13 is referring to produce that grows in atypical locations. Rabbah defended Ula's opinion by explaining that the verse concerns meal offerings only. Rav Adavar Hava objects to this. If so, that which is written in the latter part of the verse, any pure member of your household may eat of it, is difficult, as the phrase your household includes a priest's wife and daughters, and teaches that they may also partake of the priestly gifts referred to in the verse. But if the verse is referring to offerings, that is problematic, as they are permitted to be eaten only by male priests. In resolution of this difficulty, Rav Mesharshia says, in resolution of this difficulty, Rav Mesharshia said, perforce, this verse should be read as if two verses are written, otherwise it contains an inherent contradiction. The first clause states the first fruit shall be yours, Numbers 18:13, indicating that only a priest himself may partake of the priestly gifts, and it is written in the continuation of the verse, any pure member of your household may eat of it, indicating that even female family members may partake of it. How can these texts be reconciled? Here, the latter part of the verse concerns the first fruits, which even female family members may eat, and there, the first part of the verse concerns meal offerings, which may be eaten only by male priests. Rav Ashi said that there is an alternative resolution. The verse in its entirety concerns meal offerings, but with the latter clause of the verse, we come to the specific case of the loaves of the thanks offering, which even female family members of the priest may eat. The Gemara notes Rav Abba disagreed with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute of earlier Amoraim. Rabbi Yochanan says, even if one did bring mountain dates or valley produce as first fruits, he does not thereby consecrate them, meaning they do not attain the sanctified status of first fruits. Reish Lakish says, if one did bring them, he has consecrated them. They are regarded just like a gaunt animal with regard to sacrificial animals. Although it is improper to consecrate such animals or such produce as an offering, if one does, the consecration certainly takes effect. And Rabbi Yochanan, my time, Rabbi Yochanan chaz b'chalom. Milsa ba'ali esamina, amakram, reishis, v'lo kol reishis, v'artzacha v'lo kol artzacha. The Gemara discusses this view. Granted, the opinion of Reish Lakish is well founded, as he stated his reason for his ruling. But as for Rabbi Yochanan, what is the reason for his ruling? Rabbi Elazar said, I have an explanation for Rabbi Yochanan's ruling, and since I was privileged to see Rabbi Yochanan in a dream, I know that I'm saying a proper matter. The verse states with regard to first fruits, and you shall take from the first fruits, from the first of all the fruits. Deuteronomy 26:2. The addition of the word from indicates that one should take some from some of the first fruits, but not from all the first fruits. This teaches that one should use only the 7 species for the mitzvah. The verse continues that you shall bring from your land. The addition of the word from indicates that one should take first fruits from some areas of the land, but not from all areas in your land. This teaches that one should not take dates from the mountains or produce from the valleys. Okay? The Reish Lakish. Hi, Artsakam Ma'avid Levi Boyel. Tanya Rabbi Gamliel Bar Rabbi Omer. Never can Eretz Vidim Rahalan Eretz Malahalan Shabbos Shabach Eretz Afkan Shabach Eretz. The Gemara asks, and as for Reish Lakish, what halacha does he use this term, your land? Does he use this term, your land? He holds that the term is necessary for that which is taught in right. Rabbi Gamliel, son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, says, from your land is stated here in Deuteronomy 26 verse 2 with regard to the verse, and land is stated there with regard to the praise of Eretz Israel. A land of wheat and barley, vines, means grapes, figs and pomegranates, and land of olive oil and honey. Deuteronomy, and honey means dates. Deuteronomy 8:8, which are the 7 species. This serves as the basis for the verbal analogy and teaches that just as there, the verse is referring only to the produce, that is, the praise of Eretz Israel. So to hear with regard to the mitzvah to bring the first fruits, the verse is referring only to the produce that is the praise of Eretz Israel, meaning the 7 species. If Idach Eretz Me'eretz, the Gemara asks, and the other one, Rabbi Yochanan, since he has already expounded the term from your land to teach that one may not use mountain dates or valley produce, from where does he derive that only the 7 species may be used? Rabbi Yochanan holds that since the Torah could have written your land, but instead writes from your land, the word land can be used to form the verbal analogy, while the word from can teach that one may not use mountain dates or valley produce. And the other one, Reish Lakish, what does he derive from the fact that the Torah adds the word from? He does not learn anything from the fact that the Torah could have just written your land, but instead writes from your land. In Hebrew, the term from your land is expressed as a single word, me'artzecha. Reish Lakish holds that the verbal analogy uses the entire word. Tana shibigag shibicholba tanichada shibigag shibicholba shibatzitz v'shem spina maybe v'koyah tiny maybe v'enu. It is taught in one bright with regard to produce that grew on a roof, or that grew in a ruin, or that grew in a flower pot, or that grew on a ship. The owner brings it to the temple and recites the accompanying passage, thanks to God. See Deuteronomy 26:1-11, and it is taught in another brayta with regard to such fruits. The owner brings them, but does not recite the accompanying passage. Bishlam is talking Ishgag Agav lo Kashia Habigag Dema Habigag Dema. The Gemara attempts to reconcile the Braytot. Perhaps granted, according to Reish Lakish, both Braytot accord with his opinion that even inferior produce can be brought as first fruits, and they contradict each other only with regard to whether or not one should recite the accompanying passage. And again, with regard to that, the fact that the ruling of the Brayta about produce that grew on a roof is contradicted by the ruling of the other Brayta about produce that grew on a roof. It's not difficult. One can explain that this Brayta, which states that the passages recited, is referring to a roof of a cave, which is considered part of the ground, whereas that Brayta, which states that the passage is not cited, is referring to a roof on a house. Churba, achurba, lokashia, kan mechurba avuda, kan mechurba shein avuda. Similarly, the fact that the ruling of one Brayta about the produce grew and ruined is contradicted by the ruling of the other Brayta about the produce that grew in rain. And rain is not difficult. One can explain it here. The Brayta states that the passages recited is referring to a cultivated ruin, where and there the Brayta that states the passage is not recited is referring to an uncultivated ruin. And the fact that the ruling of one Braita about produce that grew in a flower pot is contradicted by the ruling of the other Braita that about produce that grew in a flower pot is not difficult. One can explain it here. The Braita that states the passage is recited is referring to a perforated flower pot, where the produce is able to draw nourishment from the soil beneath it. Whereas there, the Braita that states that the passage is not recited is referring to an unperforated flower pot. Sfina, asfina, loikashia, kan sfina, shel eis, kan sfina, shel cheres. The fact that the ruling of one Braita is about fruit and grew on a ship is contradicted by the ruling of the other Braita about fruit that grew on a ship. It's not difficult. One can explain that here the Braita that states that passage is merely cited as referring to a ship made of wood, where the fruit were able to draw nourishment through the wood from the ground, whereas there the Braita states the passage is not recited. There, the Braita that states that the passage is not recited is referring to a ship made of earthenware. Ship made of earthenware. Never heard that. What will they think of next? Okay, we're done with this.